Okay, hi everybody. The purpose of this little recording today is that Yvonne and I are coming together because we recognise that we have a lot of similarities and things that will really complement the women that we work with. And so we're just going to have a little conversation around why we went into our own business and what the catalyst was around that and kind of how it's been for us. So first I'll just introduce myself. I'm Laura Ridout, and I help women who are dissatisfied with their career or their business or the direction they're going in. Women reach a transition time in their life where they just want to change in direction. And I've set up Sister Circle, which help women and support women to do that. So Yvonne, how about you?
Thank you. Hi everyone, I'm Yvonne from Astara Consulting. So I tend to support leaders and business owners, really supporting them when they're feeling stuck or perhaps overwhelmed. So I just help them navigate their way to the future, to come up with some skills and solutions just to help them move forward in a really positive way in the workplace.
Great. So Yvonne, I think if we start with you, and you can just tell us a little bit about why you went freelance, why you left your paid job and what happened.
Yeah, I think there were probably a few catalysts for change for me actually. I worked in the NHS actually for quite a number of years, and I did enjoy my job, but it was a job that I just fell into. I'd never made a conscious choice to go into that career. And had been doing it for quite a long time, worked my way up to quite a senior role, which was great. But I never fully felt that it had been my calling. And then I had my first child, went back to work. It was all going really well, actually. I think there was that buzz that I got actually after having the first child and going back to work and suddenly feeling really productive, which was great. But I had a change in manager at work as well. And things became a little bit trickier, I would say. And in terms of, I suppose, our relationship, we got on really well on some levels, but actually with very different management styles, so that became tricky at times. And then I got pregnant with my second child, and I think that began to sort of start those thoughts in my head in terms of, now is this really what I wanted to do? Because I'd never decided that was my career. So actually when I went to maternity leave, it just got me thinking about, what do I want to do? If I was to start my career all over again, what would I do? So I kind of thought back to my whole, I suppose, my career to date, my degree in psychology and all of the things that I really enjoyed. And I thought coaching was the ideal thing. And I'd had coaching years before as well. It never occurred to me at that time, but it's only when I actually sat down and really thought about the things I was good at, the things I liked, things that I was passionate about, like supporting others and developing others, that I decided that coaching was the thing for me. So that was probably the first catalyst for change, and knowing that I had to go back and make decisions and do things differently. And I did go back to work after my second child, and actually it was much harder that time. I think actually having two young children and having quite an important job, a job that took a lot of time and energy, began to become a bit too much to juggle, if I'm honest. And I was at work, always thinking about all the things I hadn't done with the children that day, and sent them off to the childminder without really having spent the quality time that I wanted with them. And then I'd go home having thought about all the things that I hadn't done at work that I needed to do, and it became this kind of vicious cycle really of never feeling that I was doing anything to the best of my ability. So that was obviously whirring through my mind, and then I did suffer from burnout at work. Actually, that was quite very big catalyst for change. So I loved my job and it was great, but I was managing it a lot of the time on about 2 hours sleep because of the children. When I'd wake up in the middle of the night to feed them or whatever I needed to do, and then I'd then be worrying about work and doing my emails at 2 in the morning just to try and catch up because I'd never managed to finish anything at work. And after obviously quite a long period of time operating like that, it did become too much. And I started to get ill every time the kids came ill. I became ill, and then I started getting ill when they weren't ill, which was probably the warning signs, if I'm honest. But I kind of thought, oh, you know, I'll plough through it, it's okay. Because by that time, I'd actually also, as well as going to work, I'd also retrained to become a coach. So I was working full time, retraining, and, you know, obviously looking after the young children, and exhausted. So, and that cycle of illness just became a bit too much. And I had to hold up my hand at one point and go, actually, now's enough. I've got to make an actual change in my life to stop that cycle that I was in. So so I knew then that, yes, I always knew that from my maternity leave that I wanted to change careers and I wanted to be a coach. But it was that point which told me I had to.
So it started off with a kind of conscious choice in children that you knew you wanted to change. Actually, you carried on, and then you got burnt out with all the struggle of managing the job and the children, and became overstressed. So it was almost like you had to do it in the end.
I did, but it was something that I had wanted to do. I think the stress was the thing that made me think I needed to do it, there was just, I suppose there was a lot going on at that point which kind of made me you know, decide that you know, that was a good time to change my career. I completely train of thought. But yeah, so I think there were a number of things that I suppose that made me change, and it was the fact that I had retrained was a really positive thing, and then the burnout situation just made me think, no, actually the time is now, really. I've got to make this change. I've got to make that change for myself and my family as well, because you know, it actually scared me to think that I had burnt out, because I was always so in control of my life, and to suddenly think that, yes, I'd had all these illnesses and stuff that had knocked me back. But I remember just being stood in my kitchen one day, having been signed off work, and thinking, my God, I'm so lucky that actually you know, it's just coughs and colds and sore throats and sinuses problems and sickness bugs and all of those things, because actually it could have been a heart attack. It could have been so much worse. You just don't know, because, you know, that kind of stress builds up and you don't know what it's doing to your body, you know, because mine was a very physical thing. It wasn't that I was going home crying every evening. It was just a very physical reaction. And it's different for everybody, isn't it?
Well, I think burnout is very, very common in women, particularly, you know, the way you've described it, where you're trying to be everything to everybody. You're trying to do a fantastic job. You're trying to be a great mum. You're trying to do everything really well. And then what happens is that you kind of turn into this superwoman, and then you start drawing on all sorts of masculine energy, because you have to make decisions and you have to work this way and that way. And you're not kind of giving yourself any time to replenish, and then you become the kind of, you know, all these sort of disempowering archetypes then emerge, such as, you know, sort of a bit of a victim or a bit of a martyr, or sometimes you can turn into a right old bitch, you know, all the horrible things. And you know, and that's not good for women. So as soon as women understand that actually that's not where their energy comes from, it should come from much more empowering sort of archetypes, then and that's something that we go into a lot in Sisters Circle. We kind of look at how we avoid burnout. That's really such a common theme, and one that can be, you know, avoided once you understand how best to manage that.
And it's funny, isn't it? Because I perhaps didn't realise at the time. I suppose I felt some kind of external pressure of, you know, women can be everything, and and we can have it all. Like you said, the superwoman thing. We kind of expect that we should be brilliant at our careers. We should be brilliant, at looking after the children and the home and all of those other things. But the reality is, if you're putting your energy in so many places, you're neglecting yourself. And as you say, that becomes really common. So I think what I went through at the time is probably what a lot of women do go through. And I had to press that stop button and decide that enough was enough and I needed to do something else. And I suppose luckily, because I'd gone through the process of really thinking about what is it I want to do for my career, it then just became the bit of energy that I needed to make me do that. And I've never looked back. It's been fantastic.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
So how about you, Laura? So what made you change your career?
So really for me, it's very, very different to you in that I was much later on in my life. So I mean, my children are all grown up and I've kind of gone through all of that. So for me, I didn't actually have a choice. I was made redundant at the age of 56, which, for some could be a bit of a blow. and I think for a lot of people, particularly at the moment, there's a lot of people being made redundant, and it is a kind of a horrible feeling in that you suddenly think, well, what's wrong with me and why am I going? And a lot of kind of negative thoughts come through. Even though I knew exactly why I was being made redundant, which was because the funding that was funding this public health group that I was part of was finished. So it was kind of inevitable. But I still kind of felt all those feelings. But actually, it's kind of, that was my catalyst. And whilst it wasn't something I chose, it was definitely the kick that I needed because I wasn't actually enjoying the job I was in. It wasn't giving me I felt undervalued, actually. The key thing. When you've got so much to give, especially kind of as you get older and you become, you learn so much throughout your career. You've got so much knowledge and wisdom. And I was thinking, I don't feel I'm really giving as much as I can. Well, I think there's a lot more for me to give. And this job I'm in clearly isn't using all of my skills and abilities. And so it was good, actually. And I started looking for another job. And then I just thought, because that's kind of what you do. Yeah. You get made redundant and you think, I'll get another job. And then I thought, no, I don't want another job. I want to work for myself. I want to be independent. I want to choose when I do stuff. And I want to choose how hard I work. And I want to choose when I have a day off. And that was my catalyst, and that was 4 years ago. And since then, I'm lucky that I've had this contract. So I got a freelance contract, which has kind of been my bread and butter. And that's been a good thing, a really good thing. But also it's holding me back a little bit in terms of how I develop my own business and do my real own thing. So I now make sure that I do have, set time aside to develop my own business. So again, I'm doing that coaching. I'm drawing on all of my behavioural science and behaviour change that I've applied throughout my whole career in public health. I'm doing a certification on how to for a coach just for women, which is just fantastic. And you begin to understand so much more about women. And I mean, you think you know it all because you are one. But actually, we are pretty complex, aren't we? And getting to the bottom of women and how they think and is really fascinating. And it has kind of really fueled my desire to really help women. And I know there's so many women out there that are in similar positions that you and I were in. And it's tough, isn't it? It's tough to think, how do I do it? Where do I start? I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what I'm good at. And then you've got the voice in the back of your head going, you can't do it, you're not going to be able to do it, they're going to. And so, some women can do it on their own and some women need a helping hand. And that's kind of what we're here to do.
Yeah, brilliant. So is that when you came across the idea of the sister circle?
Yeah, yeah. I just thought I was kind of doing business coaching for women, and I was doing just general sort of one-to-one coaching. And whilst that was really great and really sort of intense, I realized that actually, if you get a group of women together, you kind of multiply that, and you sort of you accelerate everything really. And the power of women and their experience in one place, and how you can sort of share those stories, share that experience, you learn so much faster. And everybody, every woman, well, every person has got their story to tell and their experience to bring, and it's always rich and it's always worth listening to, and it's always something that is a starting point. So whether it's something that they never want to do again, or it's something that they want to do more of, it's always fascinating and valuable.
And I think the great thing is that women often elevate each other, don't they? And we all, as you said, we all come from different places, we all have different skill sets, and actually the power of bringing that together in one room is immense, really, because you all have, as you said, different backgrounds and experience. So you have that ability to support each other, to give each other ideas, and to challenge sometimes, because I think sometimes people hold themselves back, and certainly a lot of the clients that I work with, we have to challenge that thinking in terms and find out why they're holding themselves back, because they say they want something and then they perhaps do things to almost avoid that happening. So yeah, I think the power in the group is going to be brilliant. So it's such a great idea.
And then what we hope is that just coming back to the listener now, in terms of how Yvonne and I are hoping to work together, is that when women have gone through the Sisters Circle, they then progress or segue. If they've decided they want to start a business, Yvonne is the guru of supporting women in setting up their own business and thinking about what they need to do to have a successful business. Is that right, Yvonne? Yeah,
and I think I've had my own journey into business. I left my job 7 years ago now, nearly 8 years, and I think I didn't have particularly a great deal of support in those early days. I had to find out a lot for myself. Some things worked, some things didn't. But I think over the time, and when you realise that actually you do need support and you suddenly develop your skills, you realise that actually having that support up front is really key. So it's been great for me to be able to now support women, share the things that I found that work and my experience in terms of the things that don't work, and that really helps people move forward much quicker, and it's very easy then to develop a really good process that gives you that continuous learning and feedback, which is what we do as coaches, so that you can actually elevate and create that success much more quickly.
So I think thank you everybody very much for listening to this, and Yvonne and I are going to be having a few more conversations. We're going to be sort of talking about a little bit more about those things that get in the way of your progress, and we're going to be sharing some of the ways that we've overcome them, but also the kind of the sort of tried and tested and evidence-based sort of way as well that people have overcome that. But I think the key thing is to know, isn't it, I think, Yvonne, is that part of this is just sharing that kind of human side, because we're all kind of, we're always pushing out how great we all are and how fantastic everything is, putting on this positive front. But I think it's important to sort of really get a sense of that human side and understand that it isn't easy to sort of take these leaps of, and change direction, and to know that there's someone out there that's going to help you. And just going back to Sisters Circle, is that it is just a group of 8 women, and they will then, after having been facilitated and learned all sorts of techniques through attending, they then go on as an independent group, and forever they've got the support of each other. And I think that is pretty monumental. The women I've spoken to that are joining the Sister Circle have voiced the fact that they found it a little bit lonely and a little bit hard. So knowing there's that supportive group, I think, will be a huge benefit. So please watch this space, and we'll be kind of imparting a little bit more wisdom and a few little anecdotes and sharing our own experiences.